because I am. There, there he
So
is.
right now as well, I got my mic and my laptop set up in my truck right now. So what's going on, Brenda?
How are you? I'm fine.
I'm doing great. I guess we're going to be talking about atheism versus theism. Somebody in the comment section asked, "Are you an atheist?" I'm assuming you are. That's probably why you wanted to talk about this topic, right?
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
So did you want to give your stance on what you wanted to argue tonight? That way, I have an idea of where we can take things off at.
Um, well, I'm an atheist in that I believe that there is no evidence to support belief in a god or gods. And furthermore, I don't believe in Christianity because it doesn't make any kind of logical sense to me at all. So that's basically why I have the usual reasons for believing in what I do is because I find the Christian God reprehensible and immoral, and I find the scientific evidence for evolution, the Big Bang, naturalism, and science in general to be overwhelming, and to make belief in a God unnecessary.
Okay, so I'm a Christian. Obviously, you guys should know that if you follow my channel for more than a week. I obviously would hold views that are the polar opposite of Brenda's. I believe that um, not necessarily that I would reject science. I very much so support science. I love science. I love philosophy. I love anything that pertains to trying to better understand the world and things around us. That's actually the very reason why I think that most religions feel very at ease when it comes to science. I mean, historically speaking, we know that religion has had predominantly the most influence in helping to propel science forward. I think that based on anecdotal and the scripture itself, that the Bible very much so supports and defends the Christian belief system. And so I also believe that Christianity, in comparison to that of atheism, is far more justified rationally, logically, in dealing with morality. And so maybe you can take off from there and start to begin your criticisms towards everything I just said.
Okay, so one of the things that I hold to be most central to how I approach the world is I believe in having my beliefs comport to the evidence. In other words, I believe things on evidence and not on faith. I don't believe faith is belief without evidence, and so knowledge is a belief with evidence. And so, what I need is evidence for myself in order before I can believe something. So, I believe that the Eiffel Tower is 100 meters tall, and I believe that because I have good evidence that it is 100 meters tall, and therefore I have warranted belief in those facts. This is how I conduct my life, and when I find that my beliefs disagree with the facts, I change my beliefs, and I don't change the facts to comport with my beliefs. I think that doubt is a virtue. It is something that everybody should learn to doubt and to question and to investigate and to subject their beliefs to critical thinking.
Well, I would agree with you. I think that doubt can be a virtue, but at the same time, just like overzealous faith, unreasonable, blind faith, which is unbiblical, that's not the type of faith that the scripture demands us hold to. There's many examples in the scripture where it actually tells you to test all things, hold fast to that which is good. And we're expected to always give an account for the hope that is within us. And so I think that there was to tie to that point that there is two definitions of faith, even acknowledged in the literature, or I'm sorry, the the dictionaries as well. If you were to look at it from just a broad perspective outside of the Bible, one is faith. Definition of faith is belief without any evidence, and the other is confidence in something. We have confidence in our beliefs for a variety of reasons, just like anybody else. We don't come to our beliefs for one particular reason. But I would say that overzealous faith, there's a polar opposite of that, which is unreasonable doubt, to where you are dealing with a relentless skepticism in which you are constantly doubting all the time, never accepting what somebody's saying. So I think we see that a lot. A good example of this, if people have followed the last couple of videos that I've uploaded, is Alan Ra, that unreasonable hatred that he seems to have. And I'm not throwing this at you. I'm just using this as an example, that there can be an unhealthy dosage of being too doubtful. But I do agree with you that being doubtful is a virtue. You should not just accept anything that anybody tells you. And I think that that's exactly what the scripture tells us to do, to test all things, hold fast to that which is good. And we don't believe for no good reason as well. So I'd say that there's a lot of good reasons why we believe what we believe. Maybe we can jump into the one point that you brought.
How would you how would you decide? What criteria would you use to decide between um, reasonable and unreasonable? Um, uh, what is it? Doubt.
Reasonable and unreasonable doubt. I think, well, it comes down to observing how somebody behaves themselves when confronted with information. I used Alan Ra as an example earlier, and this was an instance with there was an I won't use myself, but I'll use somebody else. Okay, I can use myself, but I'll use somebody else instead. In the very video that I was just referencing, there was a discussion that he had with Inspiring Philosophy. And Inspired Philosophy, he had thrown a bunch of sources at him, and he explained to him, look, there's no, nowhere is faith defined the way that you try to define it. And so in response to this, somebody in the he was just saying a lot of things really, but in during the Q&A, there was this was brought up to him by one of the audience members, that there was not one single reference that he was able to show to demonstrate or to support his definition of faith. But he claimed that he's been doing this for 20 years. I hope you follow me here. He claims that he did this for 20 years straight, at least twice a week. I think that's how he phrased it. He had a discussion twice a week for 20 years straight, but not a single source out there he could cite which justified his declaration of what our faith is. And so that was a very good example in which he had an opponent, Inspiring Philosophy, who gave a whole host of sources which helped to explain his position as a Christian on faith. And Aron Ra, instead of acknowledging all that or even being able to provide a counter source for himself, became angry and belligerent towards somebody who answered who was asking a question. And so to the answer to what you're asking me here is, it all comes down to how somebody approaches blatantly obvious information. If you're going to strictly hold to assertions in light of what facts are right in front of your face, even though you're clearly wrong on it, you're not going to accept the information shooting down what you're saying. That is a clear indicator to people who are outside, seeing how you're acting, that you're not open-minded to it. So it's something you take by case by case basis, depending on who it is that you're dealing with. How do you deal with the information? That's how it would differentiate. If you have something that is clearly a fact, you're not going to accept that fact, or leaving the confines of subjective opinion. How are you going to deal with that fact? And so I hope that answered.
Yeah. So your criterion is how the person behaves.
the criteria that I have is, yes, how somebody behaves in light of evidence that they are confronted with.
What does that have to do with whether or not what the evidence says is true or not?
Okay, if somebody's coming to you with this whole host of information or facts, right? Let me go back to myself, okay? In the very video that I'm referencing, where I used that clip of him and Inspiring Philosophy, there was a discussion that I had with him, and he carried on about the ATP synthase. And even though this is a topic that I get into all the time, the C ring is absolutely not a rotor. There is no rotor involved there. It is absolutely not that. And so I let him carry on and carry on and carry on. I was trying to actually ask him specifically about, okay, well, if you're going to say that, before I was even going to get into the science, let's break down what the universal parts are of the most basic functions of most turbines, whether it's steam turbines, Pelton turbines. What are the most basic of uniform properties that they all share? But before I could even say that, he straightway denied it. And when I asked him about the specific part of that object that he claimed that he did research into, he didn't know what those specific parts were. And so the point is that he was carrying out, again, overzealous, making a bunch of claims about research he had done. When we investigated it and I pressed him, he clearly didn't do the research into that particular topic. He didn't even know what the specific reference was that I was trying to point out, but he still zealously resisted me. And so that's what I'm trying to say is,
Yeah.
how
Well,
does a person behave in light of demonstrable facts in front of their face?
you haven't cited demonstrable facts. You just said that because somebody resists you. So I still don't see how that has anything to do with whether or not what somebody says is true or not. So if wouldn't the rational thing to be to accept or reject an argument based on whether or not it's true, and not on the personality of the person?
I don't think you're paying attention to anything that I just said to you. You see, I'm not just talking about behavior, and I'm not, and if you listen to anything that I just said to you, the C ring specifically, that is the rotor of the ATP synthase. If I have to go reference mainstream articles, we can read them here on spot. You'll see that every single article in regards to the FATPAs refers to it as exactly that. Even in the literature, it points out that this is not a matter of opinion; it's a matter of objective fact. This is the rotor portion of the ATP synthase.
Yeah, I understand that.
Hold on. I just want to point this out because this
I'm
is
just
important
agreeing
here.
with you. I'm just agreeing with you.
I know, that's fine, but this is very important here. That is the fact that we have on the table. That is what the information says. And so we have somebody who's saying, no, absolutely not. That's not what it says. None of the articles support this. It's just something that looks closely resembling this. It's just a bunch of mess that we, of course, I'm paraphrasing at this point, acknowledges to it. You guys can go and check out the video. But he just straightway resisted it. Even when pointed out, while he's doing all that, while he's denying it, what's in the mainstream literature, I pointed to him and I said, I asked him, okay, that particular portion of that ATP synthase that you are saying is not something, right? You're saying it is not the rotor, is not a rotor at all. It cannot be compared to a turbine because it's not that at all. That's what you're saying. What is that portion that I'm referring to that you are saying it is not? And so the point is that I'm trying to point out to you is there is a fact here, and he's confronted with that fact. I'm not asking him to accept intelligent design. This is what the literature says. And his attitude is he thinks he knows about it before researching it. And when questioned, he didn't know about it, but behaved himself zealously in opposition before even knowing about it. Then afterwards, when confronted, his position didn't change. So that's what I'm trying to say to you is that it's not a matter of just observing behavior. It's a matter of confronting behavior with facts, and how after being confronted with facts, refusing to accept the information. Now, I'm not saying he has to accept intelligent design by being confronted with those facts, But okay, here are the facts on the table. What do we do with those facts? And that's the issue here.
But
That's how you can
so the fact that you're claiming that this, what is it, the C ring? Is that what
yes,
that is? And you're
yeah.
claiming that the C ring is a turbine?
I'm claiming that the C ring is the rotor portion of the turbine.
Yeah, and does the literature say it's a turbine?
The literature does say that it is a turbine, that the ATP synthase is a turbine, and specifically the C ring is the rotor portion of that turbine.
Okay. But the argument is still fallacious.
But you would acknowledge that his behavior was indicative of somebody who was
Mm.
overly zealous in the sense of being unreasonably doubtful to the point to where he could not learn or be open to new information because that new information conflicted with his worldview. And so he didn't even have to accept my argument. You can say it. I mean, we can talk about it being fallacious if you want to. But the point here is that because Aaron Ra is so far to the left in his views, he was so unreasonably doubtful towards and skeptical or resistant, however you want to put it. We're talking about doubt, that he was not able to accept factual information because he was concerned. He was in concern over what those implications might be with that information, rather than just stepping back and thinking, okay, well, you know what? He might be right about this, but let's sort this out and see, does this necessarily lead to the idea of design?
So I really highly doubt that. I think he was reacting to your claim that this structure on ATP synthase is in fact a turbine, and I highly doubt that it actually says that in the published papers.
Well, I have no problem with sorting that out. We can talk. I mean, in my debates with Emperor Atheists and many other people, I reference at least 5 or 6 of these articles. Amazing. You can probably just Google it in Google Scholar right now, and find a couple on the very top. But all of them, there's some of them dealing with spinach. There's all sorts of articles out there. But yes,
Yeah,
all of the
nobody.
articles.
I don't think anybody question. I don't think anybody questions that it rotates. It spins.
I didn't say that. I didn't say there's a rotator spin. I'm talking about, is it a turbine? Word for word,
Right.
the
It's
literature
it's
talks
not.
about it.
It's not a turbine.
But okay, so that's what we're going to have to do then. Go to what the literature actually says. And for people who are going to be watching, I want you to understand that this is the way that I approach it. There are articles out there. There's a database of articles for intelligent design, for and against evolution, or against evolution and for intelligent design. But the way that I approach it is I try to just go to the mainstream articles as to
Well,
avoid certain genetic fallacies that people might display. So the
how about
mainstream literature is what says this. No ID proponent, no articles from ID proponents is what I'm referencing here. So just give me a few minutes and it won't take me that long.
Well, the problem is that the entire argument is false. It's an argument from ignorance.
Is it?
It was dealt
We have
with
to take
by.
one point at a time, though. One point at a time. Is it? Are we going to deal with whether or not the articles actually say that this is a turbine, or are we going to say we're going to deal with first that it's an argument from ignorance? Which one are we
I
going to deal
think
with
the
first?
entire. It's well known that intelligent design is pseudoscience, and that the argument that structures are intelligently designed is an argument from ignorance. And
Okay, so
Darwin dealt with this objection 150 years ago. Okay, I would rather address.
I'm sorry,
Uh,
I didn't hear what you said. I'm looking for this article right now. What'd you say?
I said that Darwin dealt with the objection 150 years ago. It's an argument from ignorance. Complexity does not indicate design or mean that something couldn't evolve. This is well known and well understood. We understand how complex biological structures can evolve, like the eye. The eye is a complex structure, just like the rotors in bacterial flagellum. And we've shown how complex eye structures can evolve, and we've shown how bacterial flagellum could evolve from simpler structures. It's well known in the industry. This is a settled deal. This isn't an argument that's really available to you.
So for the people who are watching right now, this is the first article that I can find that is as direct as possible. I'm going to give you guys this right here. A second. I'm gonna give it to you for. I'll put it in. I can probably post here, right?
Well, I would rather deal. I would rather deal conceptually with the argument.
Okay, so here's this.
Irregardless of any evidence that you give, the argument is fallacious because it's an argument from ignorance. Do you know? What is design? How do you know what's design?
I'll tackle everything that you're saying right now, but I want to do it one point at a time so people understand nothing's going to be missed. So this is from Bioscience Reports. As you guys see, the link is in the description below. You got, or the chat below. Read through it. What does it say? The crystallographic structure of the turbine C ring from spinach chloroplast F ATP synthase. So what is it saying? The structure of the turbine C ring from the spinach. And so I'm going to go down here. I'm going to skim through it really quick because I'm obviously not going to read the entire thing, but you'll notice that it's going to be referencing some of the exact same parts. It's going to call it and describe it as a turbine and then break down the parts. For example, it mentions the rotary. Let me see where it's at. I know I've read this a long time ago. It starts using the same languages. Okay, so I'm going to go down to the introduction. The F1, F0 ATP synthase is a membrane-bound multi-subunit complex consisting of two rotary motors in the F0 and F1 sectors, respectively. The membrane-bound proton translocating ATP synthase of the chloroplast, CF1F0, catalyzes ATP synthase of the ATP hydrolysis coupled with proton translocation across the F0 section of the chloroplast F1 domain. And so that's really all you need to see right there. It keeps on referring to what I'm saying here about Aaron Ron, how he rejected the C ring. Goes down over here. Well, hold on a second. But
it's irrelevant because the argument is fallacious.
I'm reading still on. The chloroplast, it's not irrelevant to what you just said before you changed the goalposts and started talking about now it being an argument from ignorance. This is a complete refutation of what you first said about what it was not. So here's what a mainstream article is actually saying what it actually is. And so what is it saying? The C-ring rotor subunits of this turbine. Continue reading it. It's going to explain it exactly how you guys have heard me explain it 1,000 times in the past. And so moving on to it being an argument from ignorance, it's not an argument from ignorance.
Well, I can accept that I was not aware that that it refers metaphorically to this structure as being the C-ring structure as being a turbine. That's fine. That's fine. Obviously, it does. It's not a big deal because the argument is still fallacious. It's an argument from ignorance.
Well, the first thing that I think we should note here is that this is not one of those instances where you can say, well, it's just comparable or it's just analogous to a turbine. It is a turbine in its most basic function and parts.
That's fine. That's fine. I'll admit that. I'll accept that. That's fine. Okay. I accept that. That's fine. The argument is still fallacious because it's an argument from ignorance.
Okay, explain why you keep on saying it's an argument from ignorance, because if you're going to accept what I just said to you, then you should not be saying that it's an argument from ignorance.
Why?
Well, that's why I'm asking you. You just heard me break down a fact.
Yeah.
The ID argument, David, I've talked to you before in the past, is trying to base our understanding on our uniform experience, on cause and effect. And so you cannot like the ID arguments, but I am trying to figure out how you're using the argument from ignorance in light of a causal argument that's being presented to you. Doesn't make any sense to me. So
you haven't presented a causal argument at all. You presented an analogous argument. You're arguing from analogy, not from causation.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are. You're saying that because it looks like a turbine, therefore it was designed. And that's an argument from analogy.
No, sir. There's two things that I can do here, okay? Two things. The one thing that I can do is I can make an argument from analogy, which you are trying to um, distort the idea argument from being. And either way, it would not be a problem for me. But that's not what I'm doing. You see, here's the reason why. If I were to use an argument from analogy, like the brain, right? The random access memory, CPU, motherboard, we compare it to a computer, but in reality, the synapses that you see that are being shot through your peripheral nervous system to your central nervous system, it's not comparable. It's analogous, but it's not the same thing. But the question I would have to ask is, why are we finding patterns inside of nature that seem to only be analogous to our own creation, not some sort of unintended gradual process? So I can argue from analogy if I want to, and it would be no problem for me. It would still be an issue for you. But that's
No,
not
it
what I'm
wouldn't
trying
be
to
at
argue
all.
for at all. I'm arguing for what something actually demonstrably is. And if something is a demonstrable 100% turbine, the question is that what does that mean? Based on our uniform experience in every single instance in the past, a turbine has always come from an intelligent agent. There's no opinion there. There's no beliefs, religious belief. There's no faith there. It is. We all know this for a fact. We've all been exposed to modern society since we've been born. If you come from a first world country, so we know that these things
Yeah,
have come from a
that's
creator.
that's
So it's
that's
an argument from causality.
no,
It's
no.
not an
It's
argument from
no.
analogy.
It's not an argument from causality. You don't even know what that is. It's an argument from ignorance, because what you're saying is, I don't understand how this evolved, therefore it didn't evolve. That's an argument from
When did
ignorance.
I say
That's what
that?
you're saying. You don't understand how this structure in cells could have evolved,
No,
therefore it didn't evolve. It was designed, and that's
no.
an argument from ignorance.
That's actually not what I'm saying at all.
Well,
You
then
see, 'cause
what are you saying?
it could be true. What I just told you, what I'm saying that based on our uniform experience at every single instance in the past, we understand, we know, we have knowledge that creators have always built this specific creation, right? So the creation is an indicator of a creator based on our uniform experience. And so just playing with what you're saying right there, we can grant you that possibly that there
It,
was
yeah.
you know what, we don't know, we don't know how evolution could
Well,
do it. It would have no
that
bearing on
your
it at all.
argument your
Both
argument doesn't
explanations
it
are
doesn't
valid. Here's
follow.
the point.
It
Here's the
it
point. Here's the
it
point.
doesn't follow. It
Here's the
doesn't
point.
follow.
Here's the point. Just by granting you what you're saying, here's what's important here. We can grant you that, okay, fine, we don't understand how a creator could, how evolution could do this. And maybe evolution could or couldn't do it. Who cares? Maybe it's another option there on the table. But regardless, intelligent design would always be that additional fact. You have two options on the table, right? Creator, we
No.
know always builds turbines. We know that. Always builds
No,
turbines.
no,
We don't
you
know if
don't. That's the point. You
can you not
don't.
overtalk?
That's the point. You don't know that.
Please, can you not overtalk? Because I don't want this to go downhill so quickly. We Come on now. You're going to say that we don't know that designers don't build turbines?
We don't know that every turbine has been produced by a
Oh, come on.
designer. You don't know that. That's a non
Not
sequitur.
every single instance in the
It
past.
Yes, that's
As far as
irrelevant.
our
That
knowledge, hold on a second. As far as our knowledge goes, where we have actual, obtainable, demonstrable knowledge, not a theory that tries to infer based on a set of facts to come to a conclusion. We all have actual knowledge that creators build
no,
turbines. So
no,
hold
you
on.
don't have
I'm
that.
not,
I
hold
deny
on,
that. You don't have
hold
that knowledge.
on. Okay, so you don't know that creators build turbines.
You cannot logically infer that because all turbines in the past have been created by designers, that
And I was
therefore
trying to
that
get to
therefore
that. Okay,
this turbine like structure you see in a cell was created by a designer. That doesn't follow. That's a non sequitur.
no, you don't understand. Because of every single instance in the past, because of the fact that in every single instance in the past that our knowledge goes, an intelligent agent has always produced a turbine. We are looking at this object in the cell, which is also a turbine. So therefore, we
No,
utilize our induction to infer that that turbine was also the product of a designer as well. Hold on a second. I know you're
no,
about
you
to.
can't make that
Hold on a
inference. You
second.
can't.
Stop. See, hold on a second, please. Just like in science with evolutionary theory,
you only see small variations and changes happen now within a population. We do not see all of these creatures diverging over millions of years. This is
Yes, we
something
do.
we do. You're telling me we have observed dinosaurs evolve before our eyes?
Yes.
Come on now.
Yes.
Stop,
Yes.
stop, stop.
Yes, we have.
Please.
We
Don't
have
we
the
have
fossil. We have
stop.
the fossil evidence
Okay, so
for
we've been
it.
alive for millions of years to see that happen.
No, we have the fossil evidence. So yes, we have seen it.
Stop jumping around back and forth between
I'm not
different
talking
points,
around
okay?
back and forth.
So you
I'm
saw those dinosaurs die and then
No, we
evolve
have the
before your
fossil
eyes?
evidence. We have the fossil evidence.
Okay, just stop. Stop. Just stop. 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 Let me finish my point that I'm trying to make here, okay? The point that I'm trying to make before we jump into all these other different topics is that just like when we see small variations and changes happen now within a species, we utilize that to say, okay, if this was to take effect for millions and millions of years, then this is a reasonable, this is something, a fact in front of us, the fact of evolution that we can use to infer that all of these other changes have happened through millions and millions of years via these mechanisms of evolution. So that's the way that a theory works, right? And so what I was trying to say, my original point is that by rejecting the reasoning behind intelligent design, if you're going to be consistent with it, you're going to have to throw away all of these other scientific theories and
No, I
like
don't have to
evidence
do that.
as well.
I don't have to do that at
But you
all.
say that because you don't understand the
No,
scientific
I understand it perfectly
process.
well.
I'm
I
sorry.
understand it perfectly.
Let's move on to
Um,
fossils. Let's move on to fossils. So you said that we
no, I want
evolved.
to stick with this flagellum. It is an
Come on,
argument from ignorance. You're
fossils. No, no,
saying
no.
that because you don't
You're
know
jumping
how
around back and forth between different points, and you're
I'm
acting.
not jumping
And when I
around.
want to
You're
press you on
jumping
that
around.
point,
I
what I
want to
want
stick with the flagellum.
to. Okay, that's fine. But didn't you just mention fossils in the middle of my point with the flagella?
Yeah,
And when I was
why
trying to
don't we
talk about
stick with the
ID?
flagellum? The
So what
fact,
about fossils, though? I don't understand. Well, how did fossils get you out of that point? Then you don't want to touch
so,
that anymore.
I want to stick
Okay,
with the
the
flagellum.
flagella.
Right.
Okay, flagella. Go ahead.
And the point is, you're saying that because you can't understand or imagine how this structure could have evolved, that therefore it didn't evolve, and that is an argument from ignorance.
When did I
You
say that?
don't, huh?
When did I say those
That's
words?
the implication of the argument,
So I
which
didn't
is
say
you're
that.
saying,
You're
do you
rewriting
think
what I said. You know what?
that's what the argument from
Did
design
I
is
use those
saying, that
words?
it didn't evolve, that it was designed.
But
That's what
Brenda,
it
did I use
means
those
to be
words?
designed.
Did I use those words?
That's irrelevant. That's what it means for something
Yes
to
or
be
no? Did I
designed.
use those words?
Do you think the flagellum was evolved?
Brenda, did I use those words?
Do you think it evolved?
So I didn't use those words, did I? You know what they call that?
It's
They call that
irrelevant.
a straw. They call that a straw man
No,
fallacy.
that's not a straw man. I'm representing
So
your argument accurately.
a straw man fallacy is when somebody attacks another argument rather than the argument presented. I made a causal argument, and you're bringing in this crap about.
There's no such
Ignorance.
thing as a causal argument. This is something that you
Yes,
made
there
up.
is. I
No,
just
there
made it up.
isn't.
I
No,
just
there
made it to you right
isn't.
now.
There's no
There's no
such
such thing as a
thing.
causal argument.
No, there's no such thing. So
I
the
just
argument from design is that there are complex structures we can observe in the world, whether it's the human
no,
eye, the flagellum, or any other
no.
biological
That's
structure,
not it at
and that
all.
these complex
No,
structures must have been
no, no,
designed
no,
because
no,
we
no, no.
can't see how they could have evolved.
Brenda, no, no,
That's
no, no,
intelligent design. That's the
no.
argument.
Brenda, no. So
Yes.
I'm gonna respond now. Please let me speak. Okay. What you just said is a lie. It's not true at all. You did it
Okay.
again. You
Tell
attacked
me
another. Hold on.
tell me what the truth is
Oh,
then.
okay. I'm trying to really hard right now. So, as I mentioned earlier, a straw man fallacy is where you attack another argument rather than the argument that is actually given to you. The design argument isn't that at all. Anybody who's listening to me, you go to the Intelligent Design website and they will explain to you what their reasoning is. Certain patterns, and this is more or less a direct quote from the ID website, certain patterns are best explained by an intelligent cause because those patterns have been directly observed coming from an intelligent agent. Notes that Certain patterns are best explained by an intelligent cause. It's not to say anything about complexity. Complexity doesn't have anything really to do with this. There are certain aspects of complexity in different design arguments, but specifically the intelligent design argument is trying to pinpoint certain designs that, based on a uniform experience, have come from an intelligent agent. So when you make it so vague as to say complexity, you can be talking about anything.
Do you think that this ATP synthase is complex? Do you think it's irreducibly complex?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Do you
please?
think that ATP synthase is irreducibly complex?
I don't really care if it is or not. It's not
Well, which
relevant
one?
to my argument.
Yes, it's kind of important, isn't it?
Not to my arguments, no, not at all.
Yeah, it is.
How?
Because that's the point of intelligent design.
That's Michael,
That
one of
structures
Michael
the
Behe's
structures
argument.
are irreducibly complex. Therefore, they couldn't have evolved. Therefore, they must have been
No,
designed.
that's one of Michael Behe's arguments in regards to the Type 3 secretary system and the not the Type 3 secretary system, but the bacteria flagella. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the ATP synthase. You know that those are two different things, right?
I'm talking about the argument. I'm talking about the intelligent design argument, which is
I told you
that we observe irreducibly complex biological structures.
I'm not talking about irreducible complexity.
You're not talking about intelligent design?
I'm not talking about irreducible complexity. Irreducible complexity is a subcategory topic within the confines of Michael Behe in a book that he wrote. I don't care about that. It's not relevant to what I'm saying to you. I'm not talking about the bacteria flagella. I'm not trying to compare that to the Type 3 secretary system. I'm talking about the ATP synthase, which is in the mitochondria, which has a specific property, that only is known to come from an intelligent agent. Whether or not evolutionary theory can count for some protein that has comparable proteins to it, I don't really care about that. You can use your pareidolia all you want to pattern so you can connect dots. It's not relevant to the ID argument. It's not going to refute it at all.
Could
Even if I were to answer it.
Could ATP synthase have evolved from simpler structures?
No.
So it is. So you do think it's irreducibly complex?
No, I think that it's not relevant to my argument. All I'm trying to tell you is that it's a causal argument. If you're going to sit over here and say
you just said you don't think it could have evolved.
Well, let me make this very clear. I am not talking about irreducible complexity, but if you believe that there are any proteins that share homology with it, and I already know what you can mention. I mean, from the top of my head, I mean, the hexameric helicases, there's a lot of different things that they try to compare to the ATP synthase. But if you believe that any sort of system can actually gradually diverge to build the ATP synthase via any mechanisms of evolution, I'm all ears. Hopefully, you can give me something other than comparing homology using pareidolia to connect dots that you have in your head.
No. So the point is about. I do a conceptual analysis of arguments. I don't care about the biology or the chemistry. I couldn't care less. The point is that you are arguing that because ATP synthase is irreducibly complex, it must have been designed, and that is an argument from ignorance.
When did I say irreducible complexity?
When you told me that it couldn't have evolved.
I am telling you that it couldn't evolve, but irreducible complexity is arguing from something specifically. And so what I'm trying to say, I'm not trying to get wrapped up in because once I say irreducible complexity, you want to try to pin down any sort of arguments that Michael Behe had. I don't agree with everything that comes out of the ID realm. And I'm not sitting over here rejecting that because I think that anything that he said was invalid. But I want to make sure you stick on what I'm trying to say to you right here. If there is an argument that is made for evolutionary theory, which can confirm and prove that the ATP synthase can evolve, great. Let me hear the evidence, and then we can deal with each one of those by a points basis. And likewise, I will say here strictly that no, there is no evidence whatsoever that the ATP synthase evolved. There is none. There is only pareidolia and already existing features that have certain homologous proteins that they are comparing. That is it. But just because you connect dots in your head and say, well, this one is more similar this way, this has similar proteins in this direction, that doesn't tell me that they diverge from one another. We have to have some sort of evidence showing that there was an actual divergence. And so I need more than pareidolia. So what I'm trying to tell you, if evolution can account for this, whether you want to say irreducible complexity, those words aren't coming out of my mouth. My position is just causality. Okay, that's it.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
just
not an argument. That's just
I'm
not
leaning
an
on my
argument.
uniform experience.
There's
Let me
no
give you an
such
argument.
thing.
Premise
There's
one,
no such
let me
thing
give
as
you-
the
let me give you
argument
an
from
argument. Let me give
causality.
you an argument then. If you're going to keep playing that game, let me give you an argument. Premise one: certain patterns are only known to come from an intelligent agent. Okay. Premise two: those patterns are observed inside of the cell. Therefore, because those patterns are observed inside of the cell, the best explanation is an intelligent agent.
Yeah, that's
See,
begging the
it
question.
doesn't matter
That's
how we
begging the
write.
question. That's
Okay,
begging the
how's it begging the
question. Because you're begging the question in your first premise. You're assuming that certain patterns can only come from intelligence. That's begging the question of intelligent
Okay,
design.
well,
You put the conclusion in your
by
first premise.
questioning it, that doesn't refute the first premise. You
No,
have to
that's
hold on. Let me
the first
respond to you,
premise
please.
isn't questioning, it's
Let me
stating.
respond to you, please. Let me respond to you, okay? So since my first premise is that certain patterns in nature are only known to come from an intelligent agent, and you're saying, well, just because we haven't seen another explanation doesn't mean there's not another
That's
explanation.
not
Well,
what I said.
hold
I
on,
said that's
hold
begging the
on,
question.
Brenda, hold on. Then the burden of proof is on you to show an alternative explanation.
No, I'm not. I don't
saying
have the
that there's
burden of
only one
proof.
explanation.
When
Hold
you
on,
put forward a
hold on,
question begging
hold on.
argument, I don't have
Brenda,
the
why do
burden
you
of
keep
proof.
interrupting me? Hold on, please. If premise one is that certain patterns are only known to come from an intelligent agent, and we have to be an acknowledgement at least that if the ATP synthesis, if you're saying that the literature does say that, as you said earlier, it's referencing the parts. It's a turbine. It's got the parts of a turbine. We can at least be there. Hopefully, we can be that reasonable with each
You're
other.
just begging. No, I refuse. I don't accept it. You're
Of course you
begging you're begging the question. You're saying that certain patterns only come from intelligent designers, and that's begging the question. That's classic,
Nobody's begging the question.
straightforward begging the question. It's when your conclusion.
You don't even know what.
When
you
your
don't
yes,
even
I
know what you're
do.
saying.
Yes, I do. It's when your conclusion is in your premises, and it's in your first premise.
Okay, well, here's the thing. If those certain patterns are not only known to come from an intelligent agent, then you have to prove that there is another explanation that can account for where a freaking turbine can come from, right?
No, well,
hold on a second.
I don't have to.
Hold on. Please don't interrupt, okay? If we all know that turbines come from an intelligent agent, we all know that. There's no
No,
opinion.
we don't.
Hold
That's
on,
what I
hold on,
deny.
hold on a
We
second.
don't know that.
Let me finish what I'm saying. Hold on. If we all know that turbines come from an intelligent agent, that's the knowledge that we have. Don't interrupt me,
No,
please.
we don't have
Oh,
that
stop.
knowledge.
Will you
Stop
stop
saying
doing
it.
that?
Well, then
Linda,
stop saying
Linda,
false things.
I'm in the middle of my sentence. You don't know what I'm going to finish saying, okay? If we all know turbines come from an intelligent agent, if we all know that, okay? If we know that fact, and you're assuming that there's another place, right? Like, okay, well, this turbine doesn't, right? Well, then where is the other knowledge? I'm only going by what we know, okay? Not by a theory that's trying to account for something. Because the theory isn't a fact. It's a fact trying to come to a conclusion. And we know that theories in the past have been more wrong than they've been right. That's why you had to open the door. Well, Karl Popper with his ideas of falsifiability. You don't want to prove something. It's more important for you to prove something wrong. Theories have been more wrong in the past than they've been right. And so when somebody says something is a scientific theory, it doesn't mean that something is true or a fact. It's just trying to come up with an explanation for something that we're trying to understand. And so that's what I'm trying to say here. Okay, the fact is, based on our uniform experience, all of us just being exposed to modern society and industry, we all know that, okay, turbines tend to be made by creators.
We don't know that.
What do you mean we don't know that? How are you going to say we don't know that?
Because you're just claiming that to have this knowledge, and you haven't provided any reason for claiming that knowledge. And secondly, I don't have to provide you with an alternative to your argument. You have to present a valid argument, and you have failed to do so. You have not presented a sound, valid argument.
You're here and tell me that you and I and every person who is an American or born in Europe or exposed to modern society who is, has been exposed to motors, none of us know that a person, a mechanic, a creator has made turbines. We don't have knowledge of that.
It doesn't follow from the fact that there are turbines in airplane engines that a rotor in a cell is the same thing and must have been designed. That doesn't follow.
But all I'm doing is this. This is all I'm doing. I'm saying I'm going to stay by the knowledge that's known rather than alternative.
Well, you don't have that knowledge. That's my claim, is that
But
you don't have that knowledge.
You know we do.
No, I don't. You don't have that knowledge. Your claim is fallacious. I've told you several times now.
I don't know what I can do with you then. I mean,
Yeah.
your attitude is like, it's like,
It's
you
not
won't even
my
say the
attitude. My attitude is rational.
You
It's
let me say
based
that.
on
Okay.
on
Right.
understanding logic
Okay,
and
it's
reason,
rational. Sure,
and not
it's
simply
rational.
making
Let me
wild
ask you a question.
claims
Can you at least say these
unsupported.
words? Can you at least say these words? Turbines come from an intelligence.
No, they don't.
What the hell?
You don't know
You won't even
that.
say that?
You can't claim that. Is the rotor?
No,
Rotor?
we're not.
Okay,
You-
let me talk for a minute. Let me
Okay,
talk for a
okay,
minute. Turbines do not come from intelligence. How can I know that? Because the turbine in ATP synthase evolved. It did not come from intelligence.
That's an assertion.
Therefore, well, we know that. Therefore,
You know
turbines do not
that.
come from intelligence. Yes,
You know that.
the evolution of ATP synthase is well known.
Okay.
You don't know that, but that's irrelevant.
Now, okay, good. That's great. Now is your time to give the knowledge of the ATP synthase evolving. We know it. It's not part of a scientific theory. It's not part of evolutionary theory. You just threw out any respect of you knowing actually what science is. I'm sorry, but if you have knowledge, let's hear it.
Okay.
Type away. Go ahead.
I'll put a link here, and you're going to have to. I put a link in there, and I'm not going to be able to, I suppose, put it. It's during C. Ammentrout, B. Oster, G. December 1996. The article is Rotary DNA Motors, Biophysical Journal.
I bet $1,000. I haven't looked at this yet, but I bet $1,000 for people who are watching. If this is actually not a citation bluff, and does actually have something to do with evolution, it's going to be comparing the homologies of existing proteins or lineages, and then therefore there's going to be no connection of the mechanisms of evolution, showing that this gradual development can happen. I bet $1,000 on this guy's right now. Haven't looked at it yet, I don't believe, but let's see what it is. So, are you going to give it to me or what? Can you give me the link, please?
I can't post in your chat, dude.
No, the private chat. You can probably send me a link here.
There's a PDF from Cell. Abstract. Many molecular models move unidirectionally along DNA strand powered by nucleotide hydrolysis. These motors are multi-metric ATP phases with more than one hydrolysis site. We present here a model for how these motors generate the requisite force to possess along their DNA track.
Okay. Where's the evolution part of this? Where's the evidence for the evolution of this? That's what you were supposed to. And I'm still looking for it. I'm just listening to what you just read off. Like, you read it, right?
No, I clicked the link from the Wikipedia, which was talking about the evolution of ATP synthase. However, in 2003, N.J. Matsky gave a paper that proposed a model for the origin of bacterial flagellum.
I already understand about the supposed homologous proteins of the type 3 secretary system and so on. I mean, but the ATP synthase is not the type 3 secretary system, man. It's not the bacteria flagella. It's not.
So, The point is that there is a proposed evolutionary model for the origin of complex biological structures, right?
Okay.
So there is no need to invoke a designer.
But first of all, there are only Let me make this very clear. I'm going to say a couple of things here. Complexity. I'm trying to do this one by one. Complexity is not the argument of design. When you just say complexity, it's very vague and it's not specific, and I feel like it's being said that way and worded that way deliberately to misrepresent the actual argument of intelligent design.
Well,
and there may be different design arguments that may vary from one another, but you have to take each one of those.
Well, true. Every source that I've looked at has said, they've all said that intelligent design is an argument from irreducible complexity. All the articles I've seen about it have all said that. So I don't understand. So maybe you could tell me what your understanding is then.
Before you constantly jump back and forth, let me say a couple of things here. Even if I were to grant you that there were explanations out there for the evolution of the ATP synthase, and there are explanations out there, all sorts of explanations posited out there for all sorts.
So there are origin explanations.
Can you not do that? You see, when you interrupt me in the middle of my sentence,
well, this is a conversation.
I understand, but you're right. It's a conversation. That's why you should be respectful and let me finish speaking. Because when you attack the first couple of words I say, you're not going to refute what I'm saying by avoiding or trying to muddy the water so people can't hear what I'm going to.
So you're admitting that there are proposed evolutionary models for these structures. You just said there were.
No, I'm not saying that at all. Let me speak, okay? There are many explanations out there for complex features and structures all over biology. Explanations posited. Now, that was the first part of my sentence. There's the rest of what I'm going to say here. But none of those explanations out there in any article that's ever been presented by any scientist ever actually does what a scientific theory is supposed to do.
How do you know that? How do you know that? You're not a scientist. You're not the. How can you show me to somebody that says that those solutions don't?
I'm not finished saying what I'm trying to say here. Okay, please stop. You don't even know what I'm going to say, and you're already attacking before you can hear.
No, I'm not attacking. I'm questioning. I'm asking you how you know that these proposed solutions.
Why are you questioning me if you don't even know what I'm about to say to you? You see what I mean about that unreasonable skepticism?
I'm not being unreasonable.
Okay, so let me finish talking, please. I'm not trying to be rude to you. I think you're being kind of rude to me. I just want to talk. I just want to finish my thought, please. So the point is that I was trying to make to you right now is that in the hundreds of articles that I've looked through and the discussions that I've had with every single scientist, and discussions that I've seen with every single scientist, and every single article that has ever been referenced, and every article that I've ever read, it's the same thing over and over and over again. They are only comparing homologies of existing features and declaring that this is showing common ancestry because of the similarities that you may find in DNA or in anatomy. Yeah. Or it's something like that. It's always comparing anatomy and
what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that?
Can you stop? I'm trying to explain to you what's wrong with that. Pareidolia, it's pattern seeking. If I look in the sky,
that's not pareidolia. That's not what pareidolia means.
If I look in the clouds and I see faces in the clouds, I can see that. I can subjectively see what I want to see. And if I look at things from an evolutionary perspective, already having this idea that evolution is true, I can connect dots all over the place by looking at patterns and connecting those dots. But the way a scientific theory is supposed to be gone about is by utilizing the mechanisms of evolution to show by step these gradual changes can actually lead to those connected dots that they're assuming are actually connected. And there is not a single article out there that exists that actually shows any mechanism evolution actually being able to accumulate to build any of these.
That's a claim. Can you support that claim?
Then What are you're the burden of proof is
You're
on you.
no,
I'm not the one
you hold the burden of proof. You're the one claiming that they don't meet
Brenda,
scientific
Brenda,
muster.
Brenda,
Show me the proof.
Brenda. Hold on a second. I'm saying this to you specifically. There are no articles out there. I'm saying this. I've looked, I've done the research. They don't exist. If you're claiming that evolutionary theory can actually account for these complexities,
You said that they do exist.
Can you stop over talking me, please?
But you said they do exist, and now you're saying they don't exist?
Brenda, can you stop over talking me? The complexities of evolution, if you're saying that you're the evolutionist here, that there is actual evidence out here that these complexities can arise, the burden of proof is on you to show that this is actually the possibility. Show it.
But you admitted that that those exist. You admitted that. You said that those explanations exist out there. You said you just don't accept them.
So now you're just being dishonest.
No, but you said that. You said
Brenda,
that they exist, but that you don't think that they are valid.
Brenda, what I said to you is that there are many, you gotta listen to me, okay? There are many explanations out there all over the literature.
Yes.
It's everywhere. See what I mean?
Yes, I agree.
That's not the end of my sentence. Listen to the rest of it. There are many explanations out there trying to account for the complexity of evolution. There are many explanations, but if I just throw explanations out there with no connecting evidence, all it is an explanation that's in line with your already subjective opinions on the view. Do you understand what I'm saying here?
No, that's wrong. That's
wrong. Science, so it's okay that
that's just your opinion. Have evidence. That's just your opinion, dude. That's just your opinion.
If it's just my opinion, then give me the evidence. You're the evolutionist.
No, you cited the evidence. You said that all throughout the literature, there's all these explanations. Then all I have to do is point to that.
There's a lot of explanations, but I can give you an explanation for anything. Here's my explanation for how you're conceding the argument. You're conceding. Let's play that the atheist game, okay? Unicorns made the universe, right? That's in my explanation. That explanation doesn't mean anything until you can actually demonstrate that's true, right? We'll just play your game from an atheist perspective. Do you understand what I mean? Explanations don't mean jack if they're just assertions that you're making.
But you think that the published literature is just assertions without evidence?
If you have any facts in reality that can actually indicate that what you're saying is true, then prove it.
Well, you're the one who has conceded the argument already. You've said that there's all these explanations out there in the published literature. The published literature, and they're not just unicorn farts. They're actual explanations with citations and evidence published in reputable peer-reviewed journals. You cited that, not me. You cited it. You conceded the argument. You have conceded that there are, in fact, evolutionary explanations for these structures. You have conceded the argument.
Wow. Okay, so I don't know what's going on here with you. I mean, this is what you see what I mean? This is what I'm talking about. I mean, this is a perfect example of what we were just talking about with Alan Ra. You just morph everything in your head to try to fight information that you don't want to accept.
I didn't fight at all. I'm accepting your concession. I graciously accept your concession that in fact there are explanations for all of these structures in the literature, in the professional scientific literature, in peer-reviewed journals. There are all, and that's your words, not mine. I didn't bring it up. You did. You conceded the argument. You've conceded the argument.
I conceded the argument.
Yes, because you admit that there.
To my face, what you're doing, you're
true.
So stubborn.
Try to listen for once.
You're so stubborn. You're so stubborn with the information that right in front of my face, right to my face, you are going to ignore the rest of what I said. Right to my face. Ignore the rest of what I said. Focusing on the first.
What is the rest of what you said?
Excuse me. Focusing on the first portion of what I said. Ignore everything else that I said, so that you don't have. You're doing this so you don't have to deal with the ramifications of what I brought up to you.
Okay.
If there is, because remember that you. Please stop. Remember, you are the evolutionist here. This is what we're concerned with, right? You
So,
told
but
me.
true.
Stop, please.
No,
Please stop.
I want to
Please.
talk. I want to talk.
Brenda, please stop.
I want to talk. I would
Brenda,
like to speak
Brenda,
for
can
a
you
minute
please
here.
stop?
No, I would like to speak.
Brenda, can you please
I
stop?
would like to speak. I want
I'm
to speak. I want to speak. I want to speak. So you said that there's evidence all throughout the literature, and then you said that you don't think, in your opinion, that. Wow.
with that nonsense. And so I'm just going to wrap it up with this. I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, this guy had an opportunity to give an explanation. I mean, he came into this room saying, okay, he is somebody who is concerned with the facts. And he's a skeptic and he's open minded and he doesn't accept faith. And he gave this explanation that he tried to articulate that if evidence or facts were given to him or presented, then he would be open to it. And then we started talking about our own law. We brought up those examples with the unreasonable doubt and skepticism and how it kept people from being open minded. And then this man comes in here and refuses to actually accept the.
I'm not a man, you fucking
He
piece
wouldn't
of
even
shit.
let the words come out of his mouth that turbines come from an intelligent angel, right? He wouldn't even let the words come out of his mouth. I think he just wanted to assert, well, there could be another explanation. And then here we come to this particular point where he had the opportunity. He had the opportunity to give whatever evidence is out there in the literature that were leaving the confines of just explanations that actually could show that the mechanisms of evolution can account for these uh, claims that they are making. But he didn't want to do that. You guys saw what just happened right now. That at the beginning of he just wanted to focus in on right to my face at the beginning of my sentence and just focusing on that, ignore everything else that I'm saying. That is a good example of the unreasonable hate and doubt that we talk about, guys. That's an example of it right there. And I thought at that point, I mean, if he, I should have probably ended this call with him a lot earlier than that. Because he was getting way too over talkative, way too much. But I guess it's good to be back. So, what did you guys think about that? What did you guys think about what you just saw?